The rain came down in cold, deliberate sheets, hammering the cracked skylight of the abandoned Mount Verita observatory like it wanted inside. Every drop echoed in the hollow dome, a frantic percussion that made the silence between them feel louder. Water dripped from the rusted iron ribs overhead, tracing silver lines down the peeling astronomical murals, long faded goddesses who once pointed at constellations no one had bothered to name correctly in a century. Elias stood hunched over the ancient 24-inch refractor, pretending the lens needed collimation even though the cap was still screwed on tight. His coat, olive wool, too thin for the altitude, dripped a steady puddle onto the scuffed wooden floor. He didn't turn when the door creaked. He'd heard her footsteps on the spiral stairs long before she reached the top, each one measured, like she was counting them for the last time. Mara shut the door behind her with deliberate quiet. The click of the latch sounded final. "You came," she said. Her voice was lower than he remembered, roughened by months of briefings in sealed rooms and too little sleep. "You asked," Elias replied, still not facing her. He ran a thumb along the telescope's focuser, smearing old grease. "I always come when you ask. That's the problem, isn't it?" A gust rattled the dome's ancient slats. Lightning flickered, strobing the room white for an instant. In that frozen heartbeat he saw her in the curved mirror of the telescope's lens, cheekbones sharper, eyes ringed violet with exhaustion, hair cropped short for helmet fit. She looked like someone already half-launched. 10 years ago they had stood in this exact circle of parquet, 22 and drunk on starlight and each other. They had spread a stolen observatory blanket on the floor and mapped Orion across collarbones, Perseus along the inside of a thigh, whispering that the universe was big enough for whatever they decided to become. They had believed it. Then rent came due, then fellowships ended, then her name appeared on a shortlist for the first civilian Mars cohort and his on the propulsion stress committee that would decide if the ship was safe enough to send her away forever. Mara crossed the room slowly, boots leaving wet prints among the dust. She stopped just behind him, close enough that he caught the scent of ozone on her jacket and the faint copper of adrenaline under her skin. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said. 0400 from Baikonur. One-way ticket. "You already knew that." He turned then. Rainwater slid from his hair, down the side of his neck, vanished into the collar of his shirt. "I countersigned the final report," he said. "My handwriting's on the line right under permanent relocation, no guaranteed return." Her laugh cracked like thin ice. "You could have red flagged it. One paragraph about thermal shielding fatigue and I'd be grounded for a year. Maybe forever." "I could have," he admitted. The words tasted metallic. "I didn't." The storm growled, low and animal. Somewhere far below, thunder rolled up the valley like artillery. Mara stepped closer until the toes of their boots touched. "Tell me not to go," she whispered. "Say it once, mean it, and I'll burn the boarding pass right here on the floor." He looked at her the way you look at a supernova whose light has already been traveling 1,000 years, beautiful, doomed, impossible to stop. "I want to," he said, voice shredded. "God, Mara, I want to chain you to this stupid mountain and never let the sky have you. But you'd hate me inside 6 months. And I'd hate myself by morning." Silence flooded the dome, thick as the dust on the star charts no one had unrolled in decades. She closed the last inch between them, pressed her forehead to his. Both of them were shaking. Cold, terror, 10 years of almost colliding at once. "Then give me something I can take with me," she said against his mouth. "One thing that isn't goodbye." He kissed her like impact, like re-entry burn. Hands fisted in hair, coats peeled away and dropped in sopping heaps, backs slamming against cold brass railings that circled the room. The storm swallowed every sound. The rasp of zippers, the broken syllables of names they hadn't said aloud in years, the small wounded noises neither of them could hold back. Rain found the gaps in the dome and fell on them in cold needles, raising gooseflesh and steam where skin met skin. Later, minutes or centuries, time had resigned, they lay tangled beneath the open shutter, the storm softening to a hush. Clouds parted just enough for one indifferent star to appear, low and steady on the horizon. Mara traced the small scatter of freckles across his shoulder, the ones she'd once named after forgotten astronomers, Lalande, Leavitt, Hypatia, when they were young enough to believe the past could be rewritten in kisses. "When I get there," she said quietly, "Earth will be a morning star. A pale blue dot, just like Sagan promised. I'll try to find this exact longitude. This room, you." Elias caught her wrist, pressed her palm over his heart so she could feel the ridiculous, stubborn rhythm that still belonged to her. By the time the light from tonight reaches Mars, he said, we'll both be different people. Maybe dead, but the photons will still be us. That has to be enough. She kissed him once more, slow and deliberate, sealing the moment like a specimen slide. Then she stood, pulled on her clothes with the calm efficiency of someone who had practiced leaving in mirrors for months. At the top of the spiral stairs she paused, hand on the railing, but didn't look back. Elias stayed on the floor until the rain stopped and the sky paled to the color of weak tea. When the sun finally rose, indifferent and red over the city, he closed the telescope shutter, locked the observatory door, and left the key beneath the mat where she would never need it again. Far above the atmosphere, engines ignited with a sound no one on Earth would ever hear, and a small ship began the long, irrevocable climb toward a quieter sky.